For decades, Ferrari has stood as a symbol of pure performance, engineering mastery, Italian craftsmanship, and the very essence of a driver's car. And throughout its history, the company has resisted industry trends that might compromise its philosophy of speed, emotion, and exclusivity, which is why for so many years Ferrari was one of the few ultra-luxury performance brands that did not follow the booming global trend of producing SUVs, despite the fact that nearly every other competitor from Porsche to Lamborghini to Aston Martin to Bentley eventually entered the high-riding luxury performance market, because to Ferrari the idea of an SUV clashed with its carefully guarded identity as a maker of uncompromising sports cars, machines built with the singular purpose of exhilarating the driver on both road and track, and not vehicles built to carry families, luggage, and shopping bags. Yet as times changed, so too did the pressures on Ferrari to evolve, and to understand why Ferrari resisted the SUV revolution for so long. We must look back at its roots, its founder Enzo Ferrari, and the brand philosophy that continues to guide it even today. Since Enzo was not a man who cared for practicality or market trends but rather someone who believed deeply in racing as the ultimate test of automotive engineering, famously stating that he built road cars only to fund the racing team, meaning that every Ferrari road car was an extension of the Formula One heritage and spirit of competition, which made the company fundamentally different from luxury automakers that were willing to experiment with utility and comfort. And this philosophy shaped the DNA of Ferrari models for decades, keeping them low-slung, lightweight, two-door sports cars or at most grand tourers designed for high-speed driving. So when SUVs began to dominate the automotive market in the late 1990s and early 2000s, with Porsche's Cayenne proving that high-performance utility vehicles could not only exist but outsell sports cars by massive margins, Ferrari dismissed the trend as something that did not fit its identity, because while Porsche used the Cayenne to secure financial stability and fund its sports car division, Ferrari's own business model was built differently, with limited production, extreme exclusivity, and high profit margins per unit, making it less dependent on chasing mass-market demand. And beyond financial considerations, Ferrari also feared that producing an SUV could dilute its brand image, because Ferrari was not just another car company but rather a cultural icon representing racing passion, Italian artistry, and unfiltered speed. And for decades, loyal enthusiasts argued that an SUV wearing the Prancing Horse badge would betray Enzo's vision, making Ferrari appear like any other automaker chasing profits. Yet over time the world shifted and luxury customers shifted too, as wealthy buyers increasingly wanted vehicles that combined performance with practicality, spaciousness, and versatility, especially in emerging markets like China, the Middle East, and North America, where SUVs became symbols of status as much as utility. And rivals noticed this shift, with Lamborghini releasing the Urus in 2018, which quickly became its best-selling model by a wide margin, bringing in enormous profits that funded the rest of Lamborghini's lineup. While Aston Martin launched the DBX, Bentley produced the Bentayga, Rolls-Royce unveiled the Cullinan, and even Maserati joined the segment with the Levant, making Ferrari one of the very last luxury performance brands without an SUV. And though Ferrari long insisted it would never build such a vehicle, the economic reality of modern supercar production, the pressure of shareholders after Ferrari went public in 2015, and the growing demands of new generation customers who wanted a Ferrari experience without sacrificing everyday usability finally pushed the company to change direction. But the question then became, how could Ferrari enter the SUV market without betraying its heritage? And the answer came in the form of the Ferrari Purosangue, a car that Ferrari insists is not an SUV in the traditional sense but rather a four-door, four-seat Ferrari unlike anything it has built before. Because Ferrari's engineers and designers set out to reimagine what such a vehicle could be if it were designed with Ferrari's uncompromising standards of performance, meaning that instead of building a tall, heavy, utility-focused truck with Ferrari badges, the company created a sleek, athletic, high-riding sports car powered by a naturally aspirated V12 engine, delivering over 700 horsepower, blistering acceleration, and handling characteristics tuned to feel as close as possible to Ferrari's legendary sports cars despite the larger size and practicality. And while skeptics argue that no matter what Ferrari says, the Purosangue is still an SUV, Ferrari has gone to great lengths to insist that It is not caving into the same formula as rivals but rather carving its own unique path by designing the Purosangue with a mid-front engine layout, rear-mounted transmission for perfect weight balance, rear-hinged doors for elegance, and advanced suspension systems that prevent body roll to maintain agility, thereby making it a true Ferrari in spirit. Yet the very existence of the Purosangue demonstrates how far the automotive world has changed, because 20 years ago it was unthinkable that Ferrari would ever build anything with 4 doors, 4 seats, and a raised stance. But today Ferrari cannot afford to ignore the fact that the SUV market represents the largest and most profitable segment of the luxury automotive world. And in order to remain competitive, expand its customer base, and secure funding for its transition toward hybrid and electric technologies, Ferrari had to rethink its resistance. Though purists may continue to argue that Enzo Ferrari would have disapproved. But it is also true that Enzo was a businessman who adapted when necessary, and given today's realities he might have understood the need for such a car. Because after all, Ferrari has never been a static company but one that evolves while protecting its core values. Which is why the Purosangue is not simply about chasing profit but about ensuring that Ferrari remains relevant in a market where younger buyers want versatility without sacrificing exclusivity, and so the reason Ferrari resisted making SUVs for so long boils down to heritage, philosophy, and brand protection, but the reason Ferrari is making one now boils down to survival, adaptation, and the changing tastes of the ultra-wealthy. And in that sense the Purosangue is not a betrayal but rather a bold reinterpretation of what a Ferrari can be, ensuring that while the Prancing Horse may gallop in new directions it still runs faster and prouder than anyone else, blending tradition with evolution in a way only Ferrari can.